Sup, everybody, and welcome to the Planet Earth What's Happening podcast. I am your host, Brian Mooney. This episode of the podcast is brought to you in part by Catherine Nicole Custom Fragrance Collection. From now until the end of the month, if you go to CatherineNicoleFragrance.com, you will receive a 30% discount on all your checkout items. Additionally, if you use the promo code PEWH10, you will receive an extra 10% discount on top of the 30% savings. So I had somebody ask me the other day why I named the podcast Planet Earth What's Happening. And they asked me if I took names of other podcasts and put them together, and I'm just letting everybody know, no, I'm not going to bite off of anybody else's shit. This name of the podcast was just an expression of mine. For the last few years, I would be amongst friends or by myself, and I would read about something crazy that was going on in the world or watch a wild news story, and I would just say to myself, Planet Earth, what the fuck is going on? So I decided to take that little expression, obviously clean it up a little bit, and dub that as my name of this podcast. So that's the reason why I named my podcast Planet Earth What's Happening. Speaking of that, I just read something in the News Journal. The News Journal is a local paper in the state of Delaware about the state police department thinking about using artificial intelligence technology for dashboard cams. Now, from my understanding of the article, it sounds like they're going to start doing little trials with these dash cams, basically dash cams on steroids. What it does is when a cop is driving or sitting in his car, it does a 360-degree pan around the car, and it picks up any person or car that gets within a certain distance of the police cruiser. And what it can do is use facial recognition technology, and it can pick up someone's face or someone's license plate, and it can send that trooper a message and tell the trooper whether or not that person's wanted or has unpaid parking tickets, etc., etc. And what that does is it scares the shit out of me, because something is going to go wrong eventually with that. It's only a matter of time. I don't want to sound like a crazy person. I may have watched too many Terminator movies as a kid. I don't know if Skynet's going to fall yet, but you have already had three technological giants, Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking, and Bill Gates, come out and advocate against artificial technology because something could go wrong. I mean, it's essentially common sense. Human beings want to improve themselves drastically. Robots that can think for themselves are going to want to improve themselves drastically, and they're going to be able to do it faster. So I digress on that issue. Maybe a lot of these guys at these technological companies, this company actually that they're using is called Cobain Technologies, and it's down in Houston, Texas, and I think they have a lot of their guys eating too many Tide Pods. Speaking of that, I just learned about this new challenge, and I can honestly only ask parents, what are you feeding your children before you send them to school? I mean, I'm assuming you're making them a retard sandwich for breakfast, sending them off to school, and these kids are just conspiring on what new things that they could do just to get YouTube hits or views. It's amazing to me. So, and speaking of that, sending kids to schools, there was just another issue around Sussex County, Delaware, Georgetown, in fact, the town that I live in, with some kids at Sussex Central High School, my old high school. There's a video that surfaced on Facebook of them beating the shit out of some kid at a party. I mean, they're kicking them, they're punching them, they're throwing chairs on them. And this video is now all over Facebook. They were talking about it on the local news channels. And all I got to say, I have two opinions on that. One, this shit is nothing new. When you get a bunch of fucking teenagers at a party together, there's drinking, they're smoking weed, they're doing whatever, they're eating fucking Tide Pods, they're going to get a little rambunctious. However, this stuff where kids are beating the shit out of kids or groups of kids, there's 5-on-1, beating the crap out of one helpless human being, that is where I draw the line. I know kids are going to fight. Believe me, I've been in my fair share of them. I'm not condoning it by any chance, but if you're going to fight each other one-on-one. Don't be a bunch of pussies and get a bunch of your boys together and go beat the shit out of some helpless kid over something completely stupid. So I digress on that. That actually segues me into one of my favorite sports, one-on-one fighting, UFC 220. That event was at TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, and that was a hell of a card. I'll start off with the opening bout. Bantamweight division, Rob Font defeats Thomas Almeida by TKO in the second round. Lightweight action, Guion Villante defeats Francismar Barbosa by split decision. Local boy Calvin Cater defeats Shane Burgos by TKO. Light heavyweight co-main event, Daniel Cormier defeats Volkan Oezmadir by TKO in the second round. I actually had that one wrong. I apologize to any of my friends that picked Oezmadir because I was telling people that he was going to win, and Daniel Cormier shocked me and beat Oezmadir in fashion. And the main event of the evening, obviously, heavyweight action, Stipe Miocic defeated Francis Ngannou by a unanimous decision. I did not actually pick anybody on that one because that was up in the air for me. Francis Ngannou basically had one shot to get this fight over with. He took it. He couldn't put down Miocic, and Miocic just took him through 5 rounds of grueling jiu-jitsu and wrestling and just smothered Ngannou that entire fight. So well done on Stipe Miocic's part. He also announced he was having a baby. Congratulations on that. Also in UFC news, UFC 222 is coming up. That's going to be Frankie Edgar versus Max Holloway. I'm excited for that one. And also it was just announced UFC 223, Khabib Nurmagomedov is going to fight Tony Ferguson, evidently for the lightweight strap, but Dana White refused to say whether or not he has stripped Conor McGregor. Moving on into EPL action. English Premier League action, if you don't know what the EPL abbreviation is. Chelsea beats Brighton 4-0. West Ham and Bournemouth, they draw. Everton, West Brom draw 1-1. Manchester United take out Burnley FC 1-0. Leicester City beats Watford 2-0. Stoke City beats Huddersfield 2-0. My Gunners beat the Crystal Palace 4-1. Thank the Lord. And Man City beats Newcastle 3-1. Today's action, 11 o'clock this morning, Southampton plays Tottenham. They're actually probably in the middle of playing now. And tomorrow at 4 p.m., Swansea City takes on Liverpool. I'm actually really upset because my boy, Alexis Sanchez, went to Manchester United. He's a traitor. He joined the Red Army, and he left us. But in return, I can't say much. We got a really good midfielder for an exchange for him. I can't really pronounce his name. I believe they pronounce it Heinrich Mjolnir. I don't know if I got that right. You could slap me, or if you ever see me and I get it wrong, you could slap me if you want to. But yeah, they traded 2 midfielders. We picked up a good guy. He's a young guy, and hopefully he could fill that void for us. So moving on out of that is all the EPL and all the UFC stuff that I have. My guest today is a former professional wrestler by the name of Kris Glanden. Dilly, I have a professional wrestler on the podcast. That is pretty awesome. But Kris and I met a few months ago. He started temping at the company that I work for, and him and I got to know each other a little bit, and he started telling me about how he was addicted to heroin and opioids, and he wanted to come on the podcast and share part of his story with you guys. He's a smart guy. He's an open book. He makes me laugh. He was a little nervous, actually, at the beginning of the episode. I think once the microphone was in front of him, he got a little nervous. But as we go through the podcast, you can hear it. He starts to loosen up just a little bit, and we actually had some fun. So I will shut up now, and I will introduce you guys to Kris Glanden. Dilly.
Planet Earth.
What's happening?
And we are live. I have a pretty cool guest today. He's a former professional wrestler, Chance Sevenfold, a.k.a. Party Boy, a.k.a. Kris Glanden. What's up, man?
Not much.
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
What's going on, Brian?
Not a whole lot, man. Well, I wanted to have you on. We've known each other for a few months now. You've been temping at the company that I work for, and you and I got to know each other a little bit. We started opening up and having some conversations with each other, and we kept it pretty honest. And I wanted to have you on because our state and our country is at the height of the opioid epidemic. We just declared it a public health crisis, and you started opening things up to me from your past that you were once addicted to heroin and on pills and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But now you got it together. So to start, where exactly tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, but maybe segue into how you got started, where that all went wrong, where your addiction started.
All right. Well, I'm Kris, as Brian's introduced me. I started out in wrestling. I was about 16 when I started out. It was about 18. I actually broke my back. Got into pills when I was prescribed them. Took that for a little while. Lost my insurance. I actually started to buy pills off the street. And that's kind of where it went bad.
What kind of pills were you prescribed?
Percocets.
Percocets, okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Now, what kind of wrestling were you into?
Like WWE style wrestling.
Okay, so you were a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Talk about that shit first.
Yeah.
I got to hear about that. I was really into the WWE.
I got in. There was a couple local companies that were up by me, and I started out backyard wrestling with a couple friends of mine, and it just kind of went from there. When we found out about the companies, they had a school. We kind of got in there, and it was definitely a fun experience, man. I wish I could have gotten into it more, but the injuries kind of overtook me, and I kind of realized, I've got kids now and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's not worth it to me anymore. The money was great.
Yeah.
I made decent money.
Now you traveled around the country doing that stuff?
Pretty much, yeah. I traveled up and down the East Coast.
Okay.
I've had chances to go other places, but it didn't work out. I was young, and I had other stuff going on. I had a full-time job at the time too. So
yeah, that sounds like a tough gig to break into.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of what's the word for it? I guess. A lot of determination, I guess. I should put it that way.
Yeah.
To get into something like that. I don't know how many times I wanted to give up and just kept going.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with this drug addiction that I've got too,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so you broke your back while a match, or were you practicing or working out?
I was actually a match. I was the tag team champion, one of the tag team champions of the company. And it was actually one of my best friends, still to this day. And he is the one that actually caused me to break my back. He gave me a cradle pile driver, landed on the top of my neck, and somehow my lower back was just the point of least resistance and shattered it.
Okay, what part of it was it? Like a lower back?
Yeah, it was a L1 and L2.
Okay.
It was a compression fracture. I compressed my L1 70% and my L2 30%.
Yeah.
So I basically lost an inch and a half in height when I broke my back, and it was crazy, definitely crazy.
It's a tough gig to break. Now, did you start out in like one of those backyard kids that were building your own ring?
I was definitely one of the.
I think we all
kids.
had that fantasy when we were kids, because I for sure, definitely, me and my buddies, we would buy those toy belts at Walmart or Kmart.
Yeah,
we would pitch in our allowance. We would go to Walmart, take the bus up there, get our belts, and then we'd be like, all right, well, you're my tag team partner, and this guy will be the heavyweight champion, and I think there was like the Intercontinental champion.
Yeah,
it's before the women's belt.
That's how we started out. We kind of took it a lot farther from there, though. We started out just kind of like doing that stuff, in the backyard. Then we got a trampoline. I got my grandparents to buy us a trampoline. We started wrestling on a trampoline because we thought it was the closest thing to a wrestling ring.
Yeah.
We bought our belts like that originally, and then we started making our belts. Like, we put a lot of money and time into it.
Yeah.
We went out to like the craft stores and bought like the sheets of leather, you know what I'm saying? And then we cut it out into belts, and we took like tinfoil and wrapped cardboard to make it look just like titles and stuff like that. Yeah, we got into that. And then, like I said, with the wrestling school, that was just the topper on the cake. We just we were like, man, we got to do this. So me and my best friend that actually started our backyard company, we were the only two to start out from the backyard to go pro. But we were the ones that pretty much had the money and just had the more interest in it, because it's not cheap to get into wrestling school. It's definitely, it was like $2,500.
I had no idea there was even school
back
for that.
then. Yeah,
there's professional wrestling school.
Yeah,
no kidding.
Yeah,
yeah. I remember times at like recess. We were in elementary school, and that was the height of the WWF before they got sued by the World Wildlife Foundation and had to change their name, and it was like Stone Cold, Undertaker, The Rock, and me and all the kids, we would try to do it at recess, and then teachers were just like, oh, you can't really do this shit out here.
Yeah.
Back when recess, you actually got time to go out and play at recess. And
Yeah.
Didn't get that 20-minute recess.
Yeah, I remember that. Those were the fun days.
Yeah.
Before life got hard.
Yeah. So now you broke your back, and things started to decline for you at that point.
Yeah, I was 18, getting ready to turn 19. It was right after my son was born. It was 2008, October 18th of 2008 to be exact. We had a show at Bowers Fire Hall, and like I said, he gave me a cradle pile driver. It was the end of the match. We were supposed to win the match. I mean, I will say, wrestling isn't fake. Like, I will put it that way. Because, I mean, obviously the moves and stuff, they hurt. It's not a trampoline inside of a wrestling ring. I mean, it's steel and wood. That's all it's made out of.
Yeah, I mean, people ended up dying. I mean, like what's it? Owen Hart, remember him?
Yeah,
he was trying to do a stunt. And he was coming out as the Blue Blazer, and his cord snapped, and he fell to his death.
I mean, that was more or less.
It's dangerous.
Fell from the ceiling. But there's been. I actually know a guy who was killed up in. Was it Philly? He took they call it a brain buster, which is like a suplex, but instead of going straight to your back, you drop him more towards the top of your head. But the way you do it, it's more of a protected fall. So you're not supposed to actually hit the head, but the guy actually landed more on his neck, and it actually broke his neck and killed him. I mean, the rings aren't, like I said, there's a little bit of carpet padding. The best way I can put it is if you've got carpet in your house and there's a little bit of padding underneath, go throw yourself on the floor. And that's what it feels like. I mean, if you just threw yourself on your back.
Let somebody give you a tombstone on your living room
there's
floor.
No give, I mean, there's very little give on a living room floor. I mean, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. Man, we're having like a Joe Dirt moment here.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you just came wandering into my house. And now we're going to town. So you break your back, you get on prescription drugs. Where does it go from there?
I started out with the pills. Like I said, I ended up starting to buy them after my insurance got cut off. And then once that kind of took its course, that's when the whole government started coming in and trying to regulate the pills more. And so the people that I was actually buying my pills from started getting cut low. That's when heroin started to come around and make its rounds and stuff like that. Back then, heroin was really expensive. I remember paying, it was like $140, $150 a bundle. And that's a lot.
How big is a bundle?
It's 13 bags.
Okay.
Little teeny. I mean, they're little bags. I mean, most people.
Good information to know. A bundle is 13 bags of heroin.
A normal heroin addict normally does, I would say 4 or 5 maybe on average. Because, I mean, like I said, it's expensive. I mean, I had pretty much endless income at that point.
But it became, so to speak, cheaper than pills.
Yeah.
That's why
in the beginning, no. It was, but like I said, the reason why I had got on it, which I had always said I would never touch a pill, never touch anything, because I had injuries before and never took pain pills. When I broke my back, I had no choice. But the reason I started getting into heroin was for the fact that I didn't want to be sick at that point. That was the only way to keep myself from being sick. And with not being able to get the pills, even though it was about the same amount, same price, in the same price range at that point, that was the only thing around that was an opiate. So that's why I got into heroin. And then eventually the price started coming down, and by then I was already off to the races, as they say.
Already hooked. Okay. No, I got you.
Yeah.
Now, where you were in the middle of going through your addiction, and you and I have talked about things at work, things that you got yourself into. Where exactly does the addiction to heroin take a man? How dark of let me think of this question. How dark do you need to go? Or how dark did you go? How low did you go?
Sure.
During your addiction?
I went pretty low. I mean, I can't say that I went as low as others. I mean, everybody has their own rock bottom. It just depends where you're at. My rock bottom was laying in a hospital bed with probably about 20 or 30 nurses around me and like 3 doctors with a bunch of tubes in me.
Yeah.
And that was probably my low point at that point. I had been clean for a while. I would say about 4 months. This was this last time. So it was about a year. It was August 26th of, not this past August, but the August before. So was that 2016, I think it was?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was August 26th of 2016. I had my 3rd overdose in the 10 years that I used. And when I woke up at that point, when I was brought back, like I said, I had tubes in me, I had an oxygen mask on me, all the nurses around.
When you say brought back, you mean...
I was dead for 4 minutes.
No kidding.
Yeah, they brought me back, and finally I had no idea where I was, because the last thing I remember was doing my shot, and I would just light a cigarette, and the next thing you know, I'm waking up in a hospital bed.
Yeah.
And then they're asking me all kinds of questions and all kinds of stuff. My wallet was stolen that day, so they didn't have my ID. They didn't know who I was, nothing. It was a complete mess. And at that point, I was just like, you know what? I don't want to live like this anymore. So I just decided to change my life at that moment.
Yeah.
And I mean, I used like one or two more times, spaced out over the next, I would say, month. And then, like I said, September 11th, that was the last day. Well, September 10th was the last day that I used anything. That was the second time after I ended up overdosing. And then that morning of September 11th, I decided I was never going to pick up another drug ever again.
Yeah. That's good, man. Now, did you ever have to go through the steps of getting like a naloxone injection, aka Narcan?
No, yeah. They said they hit me a few times with Narcan, but I think that obviously it brought me back, but I think they still had to give me CPR because my heart was stopped.
Okay.
To bring me back. So, I mean, even if they'd have brought me back, I would have probably kept dying, I would imagine. I'm not too sure because, like I said, I don't remember a lot. The only thing I really remember is waking up after the fact. I was already back. So I don't know anything what happened before that. I remember trying to light my cigarette at our shop where I actually used, because it was an old boss of mine. Like I said, I'd been cleaning. I had got a job with them, and it kind of got me back into it. I got around the people, and that's why they say, man, change your people, places, and things, because if not, then you're just going to be right down that same road. And that's what happened to me. I mean, I didn't know that they'd used when I got the job, or I'd have never got it. Yeah. But that's what happens. You just got to be vigilant and know who your people, who you're hanging out with, and where you are. I mean, it's just what it is.
It's gathering some self-awareness. I remember when the whole prescription medication epidemic started, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going through my own life struggles, but I was almost completely oblivious to it. We would go to my buddy had a beach house. We would go to his house. We would party it up. Most of the time we would drink, but I started noticing good friends of mine on the couch during the middle of these loud parties,
asleep,
just
basically.
Sleeping.
Yeah.
And I was just like, how are they sleeping? Okay, they must be tired. Again, me completely oblivious to it because I had problems of my own. I mean, I'm fully admit I'm an addict. Yeah. I don't drink anymore because I had problems with it. Yeah. All drinking did was just cause problems in my life for the last few years. And I had to step away and change my lifestyle, change everything. Yeah. It's not an easy road to go down.
And honestly, to me, alcohol is probably the worst over heroin, just for the fact, not in the general sense of the drug-wise, but just staying clean, because alcohol is legal. Yeah. You can just walk in. It's harder to stay clean when you're an alcoholic. And for me, anyway. I mean, because I'm not going to... Before I got on pills, I used to drink like a fish, man. I mean, I'm an alcoholic myself. Yeah.
Cross-addicted, a lot of people would say.
I'm cross-addicted.
Well, now they're calling it like substance abuse syndrome, I guess. Yeah. I was reading an article in the news journal. It basically, they're saying how the state's going to try to combat it is the General Assembly is getting together, and they're going to start what is known as a stewardship fund. Yeah. And what they're going to do is they're going to take this stewardship fund, it's not going to come out of any of the budget, the state budget, and they're going to put this money into combating the addiction issues in the state.
Yeah.
Where they could get like volunteer firefighters Narcan, state police will have Narcan.
Yeah.
Paramedics and stuff will have Narcan. Even like I think they even said fire police too. Like just people who are almost essential personnel.
Well, now it's actually gotten to the point where if you're an addict or you are a family member of an addict, they're actually able to get Narcan now too. I think through the pharmacy or somehow. That way, if you
even if you're an addict.
Yeah, because
I was hearing that. Dude, how does that? Yeah, how does that work? I mean, were you supposed to like, hey, buddy, I'm going to do my heroin. You hang out with this Narcan just in case type stuff?
See, that's what I can't understand either because of the fact that, I mean, if you're not, like me personally, I used most of the time by myself.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in rehab, they used to tell you, oh, you never, you need to do this. You can't do this alone. You can't get clean alone, alone. You need somebody because you obviously didn't do heroin or do your drugs alone. So, and I was one of the ones that stood up and was like, no, I did most of my stuff
most
alone.
of the time. I mean, I did a lot of my drinking. I did a lot of my drinking at the tail end of my escapades. Most of my drinking was alone.
Alone, yeah.
Because all of my friends were just like, he's going to go out again and he's just going to make a fool of himself. None of my friends wanted to be around me drinking anymore.
But I'm more of less, I'm a sociable person. Like, when I'm around people, I can be social and stuff. I have social anxiety. But, like, when I was using and stuff like that, I didn't want to be around people because I hated who I had become. Yeah. And I wanted to basically loathe in person, or by myself alone, and just kind of like
fear and loathing in Magnolia, Delaware.
I just wanted to sit in my own filth, as I called it,
drown in your own piss.
And just be it. I wanted that to be my last shot every time. Like, I mean, and it's just how I was. I wanted to get to that point, but I just was never fortunate enough. And I'm glad, like today, I'm glad that it never happened because, I mean, I have a really good life now. I mean, I have a beautiful fiance. I have 2 beautiful kids, a stepdaughter also, so 3 kids total. And, I mean, my life is back on track finally. And it takes a while to get to realize that, I'll have my days where I just don't feel like I've accomplished anything. Like, I'm like, dude, nothing's changing. Yeah. Like, it still feels like I just got clean yesterday and I want it to change. And just sitting here kind of made me realize, like, I have accumulated a lot. Even though I might not have material things, I've accumulated a lot in the year and a half or close to year and a half that I've been clean. Just from all the stuff that I have now, with how far I've come. So yeah, that's definitely where I just kind of realized that. It kind of made me take a step back and realize how much I had. Like, I didn't think about that.
No. Well, like back what I was saying with this stewardship fund, it seems like now that it's officially become a public health crisis, the stewardship fund is going to put money aside, and how they're going to do it is any of the opioid or prescriptions that come into the state, they're going to charge, I believe, the manufacturers. It's like a penny per milligram of any prescription drug, and they take that little amount of change and they put it into an account. And I think they averaged it out to be like $25 million extra to put into this fund to combat these opioid addictions.
Yeah.
Now, what I think is going to help with it is going to be the legalization of marijuana. I mean, it's eventually going to come to a point where it's going to be recreationally legal. It's medically illegal. CBDs are legal in Delaware, but they're going to make it legal, and I think you're going to start seeing a dip in this stuff. I knew guys that were they didn't get on heroin, but they were on prescription pills, and they started taking CBDs. I take CBD myself. I mean, I always thought it was bullshit when I first started hearing about it, and you get a little nervous too because with your job type, any job nowadays, I mean, you got to take a urine test.
Yeah.
and there's that little, it's 0.001 THC in it, so you get a little nervous. But I started having a lot of back issues. I get headaches.
Yeah.
It's just things it's just wear and tear on the body from the type of work of work you and I have done. I've done it for the last 14 years.
Yeah.
I've been with the company I've been with now for 10 years. And it wears on you after a while. So I started doing it, and honestly, I feel a whole lot better. I'm not as like high strung, I feel like. I haven't had a whole lot of back pain, but at the same time, like I do other things to take care of myself. But I know guys that started doing CBD and they got themselves off of pain prescriptions.
See, I've looked into that. I've kind of looked into that.
I always thought it was bullshit, really. But when I started doing it, I was like, man, there's just something different about it. It's not like you're getting a euphoric feeling from it.
Yeah.
It's almost just like you
get that relaxation.
You have a relaxation.
Yeah. See, I looked into that myself because, I mean, as you know, like, some people will argue the fact that, oh, you're on Suboxone, you're not clean.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't see it that way. I'm in recovery whether I'm on Suboxone because I myself am on Suboxone, and I have been. And I was just actually reading a post from the New York Times, I think it was today, where they said that more doctors need to start prescribing it. And I don't mean like, you know, they already say, well, doctors are drug dealers basically, but in a sense, it's better because it's a proven fact that more people that are on Suboxone stay clean longer and avoid relapse than people who are completely abstinent.
Yeah.
There's a proven fact. More people die from complete abstinence when they relapse than people that were on Suboxone. And see, I've tried both. I've been on both ends of the spectrum. I've tried the abstinence thing, and the longest time I could get was 9 months, and I had that multiple times.
Well, it's also pain too. Suboxone, it's like
it works. It helps.
It's called bupropion or something. It's
buprenorphine.
Buprenorphine.
Yeah.
It's the long name for it, aka Suboxone. And Suboxone, I believe, is just the brand name.
Yeah.
But I from my understanding of it, now you take it. If you have any pains or aches and stuff, it takes away that, but it doesn't give you that high euphoric feeling.
Because I mean, as you know, like with me breaking my back and stuff like that, like I have back pains every day. I've had injuries and stuff like that. Because I mean, the best way to put it is when you're in a wrestling ring and you go out and wrestle, every match is like being in a car accident. I mean, that's what it feels like. I mean, you're bruised up, you're banged up. You know, that's what it feels like after every show. I myself have been out of wrestling now for a few years, but I still have the aches and pains of wrestling and stuff like that. And with taking Suboxone, like that takes a lot of the edge off. But I don't get that high feeling that you would get from pills, you know. And as long as you take it prescribed like you're supposed to, and I actually take less than I'm supposed to, they want me to take more, but I don't like being tied down. I mean, I'm actually trying to wean myself off. I've been talking to my doctor about getting weaned off. Because I don't want to be on it no more. I feel that I've gotten to the point in my recovery where I'm able to bypass those cravings and be able to cope with it now instead of going straight back to the drug.
Yeah. Well, that's where you and I had a bit of a disagreement too with the Suboxones, because people get addicted to it, but you have a good self-awareness on saying you're basically, I mean, they come in strips, so you're cutting them in half, and you're not taking what you're actually supposed to take. You're trying to wean yourself off.
Yeah, I'm actually taking less than what I'm supposed to take.
It's just, with me, it's like you read the side effects about this stuff, and it's like, you're taking you're taking X to get off Y. Yeah. But with Suboxones, they have just as much side effects as just doing heroin does. Yeah. I mean, just shortness of breath, irregular heartbeats, vomiting. Yeah. Lack of sleep, can't sleep at night, restlessness.
It's actually longer too. To get off Suboxone, they say it's like, to get off heroin, it's like a week. Obviously, well, you have post-acute withdrawal, which is later on. That's more like the anxiety levels and stuff like that. That can last up to a couple of years, depending on how long you used, because it takes like how many ever years you use, it takes like double that to get your brain back to normal.
Yeah.
But with Suboxone, they say that it takes Suboxone like a month. You're going through like full-blown withdrawal for like a month. And that's kind of what scares me, because I've gotten down on the Suboxone almost so low, like we've talked about before. And then it gets to the point where it's just like I'll start feeling really, really shitty. And with having a job and all that stuff like that now,
It keeps you
it's a
functioning.
lot harder. Yeah, it's a lot harder because I can't just come off of it now because I'll be out of work for a whole month. I mean, when you're going through that, the best way to put it is, it's like when you're withdrawing, it's like having the flu times 10.
Yeah.
So if you have like the worst flu and then you times it by 10, I mean, you literally want to die. Like, there's people that have committed suicide because they can't take the pain anymore. I mean, I've gotten to that point where I've wanted to just end my life at that point because I was so sick and just couldn't take it anymore. I mean,
well, that's where most people end up dying on when they relapse, right? Is because when they relapse, when they go back on heroin, when they almost inject what they were on before. Like they think they can inject themselves with the same amount that they've been using.
Yeah.
And their body can't handle it because they have been off of it, so they end up dying. And
yeah.
it represses their respiratory. I had a really good friend of mine. He was he was a good kid. But he got addicted to pills and he was on heroin and he ended up dying.
Yeah.
And that's what I've heard. And he ended up dying too. I believe he had a batch of heroin laced with fentanyl. Now, fentanyl is like worse than Percocets or Oxycontin.
It's a synthetic opiate that is man-made.
And they give it to cancer patients because basically it's almost like morphine. They give it to cancer patients who are on their way out.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's supposed to be to make originally that's what it was created for cancer patients that were terminally ill, that were on their last leg, just so they could have their last few moments on this earth as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
I myself have never had cancer, so I don't know how that feels. But I can just imagine, I mean, and that's probably why, because originally the thing with pain pills is people take pain pills, and that's the whole reason why people get addicted, is pain pills you're not supposed to take. It's not supposed to take all your pain away. It's just supposed to make it so you're functionable, so you can live with the pain, you know? But what happens is the reason why a lot of people get addicted to it, or what they think is, like myself the same way. I took pain pills and I just kept taking them because I was like, I want all this pain to go away. Yeah. And then eventually when you start doing that, that's when your body just kind of, it craves that. It wants that.
It gives you that
feeling.
Euphoric feeling.
Yeah.
I remember when my wife, she had breast reduction surgery last year, and they prescribed her oxycodone. And she didn't want to take it at all, but the pain was like one night so unbearable. She's like, I need to do something. So she took one of these things.
Yeah.
And we were talking the next day, and she just told her, she was telling me, she's like, I just feel too comfortable now. Like, I feel too good. And it scared her. And she's like, I'm getting rid of these things.
Yeah, that's
because it almost, it doesn't matter to me from what I've seen. I've never been addicted to heroin. I have my issues with drinking. But people get hooked. The progression is much faster.
Yeah.
You don't have to have an addictive personality. I mean, fucking Bill Gates, if he gets a batch of it and he likes the feeling that he gets,
he's going to continue to do it.
He's going to continue to do it. And I had a good friend of mine that got on it, and he almost told me, and it was a guy I never would have thought would have ever gotten into it. He got into it, and he was just like, it almost takes you to a place where you don't even realize that this is doing it to you. That it's like you're losing weight, your teeth are going to shit, you're not taking care of yourself. He just basically told me, like, I didn't even realize what I was doing.
You're a shell of
it. Almost had you zombied into it.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, because like when I started out, I never would take a pain pill myself either. Like I said, I mean, I've from wrestling before and doing other stuff. Like, I've been hurt multiple times where they gave me pain pills and I never took them. I never wanted to take them because my grandmother, growing up, she was on pain pills because she was older and stuff like that. So they prescribed her Vicodin. And I just seen how she was when, like, if she would run short a day or something like that, that whole day she was just miserable. And at that point, I never knew that she was withdrawn. I didn't know that. Yeah. She didn't even know it. I mean, she was in denial, you know. She didn't know that's what it was. But looking back on it and stuff like that, that's what it was. Like, she was withdrawn. And I always seen that. And I was like, I definitely don't want to get hooked on these pain pills because I don't want to be miserable like that. And
I had a few people close to me like that where I was like, hey, you know, you basically they would get upset because they couldn't get their prescription refilled, and it was almost psychotic because they couldn't get it. And it was tramadol. It was tramadol, actually, the other person that I know that was taking those pain medication, that pain medication, and they couldn't get their prescription, and it was like they were irritable.
Yeah.
And just a whole different person to be around because they couldn't.
It was
relieve
that's
their
how
pain.
I was. I mean, I'm not I was the same exact way. I mean, I'm not an asshole, I guess, for the most part. I mean, I can be, but I was a real, I guess, a dick when I was withdrawn. I mean, I would do some nasty shit to people just to get my stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I never really had to steal anything just because of the fact that I had money like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not proud of the way I got it. My grandparents gave me my money and stuff like that. I'm not, like I said, I'm not proud. I stole one time and got caught, and that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Just for the fact that, it kind of put me on that path of working to get clean, because I got arrested and got locked up and all stuff like that. But luckily it was just a misdemeanor charge and wasn't nothing crazy. But yeah, it does make you do some crazy stuff. I mean, I don't know how many times, like, I got into it with my grandparents when they wouldn't give me money, and I broke stuff and threatened them and all stuff. And that's not the person I am, like,
Yeah.
it was crazy just to see who I was now, like who I'd become. And that's why I hated myself so much at that point.
Yeah, when you have
It's
addiction
just-
issues,
it's nasty.
You do, and I don't know what it's like to be on heroin, but even when I was quitting, I was gonna quit drinking, I found myself getting irritable about stuff because I'm like, this has become a problem, but now where do I go from here?
Yeah.
And you have to relate. You almost have to relate to people. You have to get a tribe of people in your life that have had similar problems with something, or AA meetings or an NA meeting.
Yeah.
And I do. I go to an AA meeting, and I have close people in my life that I can relate to and have gone through similar problems like I have. The big issue that I had wasn't putting down the drink. I could put it down, but I just was a prick. I was a miserable person without it. And then giving up that lifestyle too, as you talked about, person, places, and things.
Yeah.
The lifestyle that came with the drinking, I couldn't forget about. I was also, that coincided with my drinking. Like I loved going to the bars.
The bars, yeah.
I loved going to pick up girls like that. That was my lifestyle. But it was becoming a major problem.
That's me, man. I was the same way with heroin, man. I liked almost like that rush of going to get the drugs. Like, I just to get up every day and just get in the car and have to go get it. Like, and kind of
get my drugs today.
laying below the law. Like, I hate it now. Like, I really do. I'm like, thank God I don't have to wake up every day and have to do this. And it literally revolves. It's the same thing every day. It's a repetitive motion, a revolving door, as I like to call it.
A vicious cycle.
Yeah, you get, it's the same thing every day. You wake up, you go get your drugs, you do your drugs, you lay around, you go to sleep, you get up and you do it again the next day, and that's just how it was. And when I was using, I liked that, like, because of the fact that I got a rush going to get the drugs. You're right underneath the cops' noses, and you're getting shit, and then you're going back home. It's like that illegal activity.
You're not getting caught. It's almost like when you're drinking before you're 21. When I turned 21, it was almost not fun anymore.
Yeah, that's how it was.
It's because you would go to these parties and you would get yourself all shit faced. You would be around your buddies, and you knew you guys were all doing something wrong. It was illegal. Yeah. And then it's like you became 21, and you're just like,
now it's not
all
fun.
right.
Yeah,
I guess this is okay.
That's how it was for me. I mean, it's the same way with heroin for me. That's how it was for me. I don't know. It's that lifestyle of chasing it.
Do you think now you can get a medical marijuana card in the state of Delaware, but you're gonna have to put some money into it.
Yeah.
Do you think as time goes on, if they legalize marijuana throughout the country, that you are going to see an easement on these opioid addictions? Do you believe that?
You may. But then again,
everything you can get addicted to anything.
Yeah, I mean,
you can.
I don't.
I mean, look at
it's
these,
hard
look at
to
these,
tell
the
though,
phones and shit. Everybody, like, you go to a restaurant anymore and you see people just like staring into their phones, and sometimes I catch myself doing it where I'm just staring at my phone and I'm like, what am I even looking for right now? You just get lost in it.
Yeah, I think you'll have less people getting on. on opiates, I would say. So, I mean, it kind of might decline. The people that are on it already, I think are going to stay on it just for the fact, unless they're willing to get clean. I mean, you can't force anybody to get clean. I don't know how many times that happened to me. You know, my family sent me to rehab and made me get clean. And I get out.
You got to be ready. When you're ready, you're ready.
Yeah, I wasn't ready. I still had demons inside that I had to conquer before I wanted to put the drug down, you know. And that's the same thing with this medical marijuana and stuff now. I mean, I don't think, because like a lot of people that are on heroin don't smoke weed. I mean, it's just they don't want to touch it. I mean, they might have before, like I did before, but then when I got on heroin, I didn't want to touch it anymore. Yeah. And it's kind of like, I mean, I don't think that it's going to help them, but it will help the doctors prescribing the opiates. There won't be as many doctors prescribing opiates. So I think it'll cut out those new people with new injuries and stuff.
Yeah, I think
it'll have a little bit of a decline.
There's states now, Alaska, I think it's Alaska, Minnesota, California, Colorado, and Pennsylvania. They're the states that drafted legislation for these stewardship funds.
Yeah.
And I think also that'll help dry these up. Now that these manufacturers or these pharmaceutical companies have to pay, it's an extra penny per milligram, but they're distributing thousands of milligrams of these things a day.
Yeah.
They're going to start missing that money eventually. I think you will see it dry up. Now, I don't know if they do, if it's recreational, it's going to almost be like alcohol, I believe. You're going to have to go somewhere where you could smoke it, or there's going to be certain areas where you can't.
Yeah.
Just like with drinking, you can't go to the beach and have a drink. You can't go to the beach and smoke a joint. You're going to have to go to a bar. It's almost like in the Netherlands.
It's like it's Colorado. Colorado's the same way.
Yeah,
they have smoke shops. They have, dispensaries like that where you go get your stuff. You can't smoke it in public. You know, it's a fine if you do. Kind of like with alcohol, you have an open container. If you get caught with an open container, it's a citation. You know, you can't do that. Or even publicly intoxicated. You can't be caught being intoxicated in public, or you'll get in trouble. And I think that's how it will be with the marijuana. I mean, I see it like that.
My conservative audience might be disappointed in me because I'm like this conservative guy fiscally, but with comes this issues like this, it's like marijuana. I've never known. We were taught when we were kids. Just say no was around.
Just say no, yeah.
And it was a gateway drug, and it's going to lead you to other things. And I almost saw that with people that I knew, but today it's prescription pills, things that are legal, that are becoming these gateways. I mean, alcohol has done more damage in my life than anything could have. I mean, you just the consequences behind everything that I did were tenfold.
Yeah.
And it made me sick. It made me angry, irritable. I mean, there was just things that it did not mix well with the chemicals in my brain. You know what I mean? I feel like people do more fucked up shit when they're drunk as shit. They get DUIs. I don't know too many guys who've gotten DUIs smoking pot. I actually know one guy, but it's because like he was.
It's harder to spot.
He was out of his mind.
It's harder to spot too. I mean, because with alcohol, you can kind of smell it right on you. You know, I mean, unless you're smoking in a car or something like that. But I mean, most of the time, it's just harder. But yeah, with the marijuana and stuff like that, damn, I can't even think of where I was at now.
Sorry, we get lost in this shit.
Yeah, it's. I'm trying to remember what you said something about
pot. Is it going to help with the opioid addiction?
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff.
I mean, it may not. Like I said, I think it'll help with the newer generation coming in. That way they won't be prescribed opiates. They may be prescribed marijuana.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably about.
Or do you think it's a conspiracy theory to get everybody hooked on on marijuana? Is that going to be the new public health crisis?
I believe that the government is the one that brought in opiates. Obviously, we wouldn't still be in Afghanistan for no reason.
Are you a conspiracy theorist, Chris?
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do believe in some conspiracies, not out of this world conspiracies like some things. But
not too far-fetched one. I mean, there's some pretty outrageous ones out there. Now, I'm not like an Alex Jones type of character, but there's definitely things there's some pretty crazy things that the government does.
Questionable, it's definitely questionable.
So,
but yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. But yeah, I mean, hey, that might be part 2 of having you on this podcast. We'll have to talk about some conspiracy theories and shit.
Yeah, definitely.
But we're coming to 45 minutes now, and I hear kids running around outside, which means my wife and kids are home. So I'm going to cut this off here, Kris.
All right.
I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you for your time. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, no problem.
See you later, bitches. Well, there is another successful episode of the Planet Earth What's Happening podcast. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Kris Glanden for his time and his honesty. I surely appreciated that, and I hope my audience did as well. So after every episode, as promised, I will do a This Day in History segment. Today is January the 21st, 2018. On this day in 1793, after being convicted of conspiracy with foreign powers and sentenced to death by the French National Convention, King Louis XVI is executed by guillotine in the Place de la Révolution in Paris, France. That translates to where the French Revolution began. Louis ascended to the French throne in 1774, and from the start was unsuited to deal with the severe financial problems that he had inherited from his grandfather, King Louis XV. Also on this day, in 1863, 2 Confederate ships drive away 2 Union ships as rebels recapture Sabine Pass, Texas, and open an important port for the Confederate Army. Sabine Pass lay at the mouth of the Sabine River along the Gulf Coast of Texas. The Confederates constructed a major fort there in 1861. Also on this day, in 1950, the conclusion to one of the most spectacular trials in U.S. history, when former State Department official Algier Hiss is convicted of perjury. He was convicted of having perjured himself in regards to a testimony about his alleged involvement in a Soviet spy ring before and during World War II. Hiss served nearly 4 years in jail, but steadfastly protested his innocence during and after his incarceration. And finally, on this day in history in 1990, a little sports history for you. At the Australian Open in Melbourne, Australia, American tennis player Johnny McEnroe becomes the first player since 1963 to be disqualified from a Grand Slam tournament for misconduct. The 30-year-old was trying to win his first major tournament since the 1984 U.S. Open when trouble ensued in the 7th game during the 4th set of his match with Mikhail Performs. And I hope I said that right because sometimes I have no idea how to pronounce these names. I look it up and I can never find the correct pronunciation. But anyway, McEnroe hit a forearm too wide and then proceeded to smash his racket on the ground until the lead umpire, Jerry Armstrong, gave McEnroe his 3rd conduct code violation of the match, resulting in a game-set match call and the disqualification of Johnny McEnroe. Well, that is all of the history I have for you guys today. Again, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast or you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, please email me at planetearthpodcast@outlook.com or send me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook. See you later, guys.